It's no secret the political divide in America has grown deeper and deeper over the years. It seems that Republicans and Democrats just can't get along anymore. But why is that? In this video, we'll dive into the reasons behind the growing divide between Republicans and Democrats. We'll look at the historical factors, the role of media, social psychology, and how both parties' changing platforms have contributed to the polarization we see today. Most importantly, we'll talk about what, if anything, can be done to bridge this divide. So let's jump in. To understand why Republicans and Democrats can't seem to get along anymore, we need to take a step back in time. The divide between political parties is nothing new. In fact, it's part of how the US government was designed. The founders anticipated political disagreement, but the nature of those disagreements has evolved. The early parties, Federalists and Democratic Republicans, argued fiercely over the role of the federal government and states' rights. Fast forward to the Civil War, and the divide was not just ideological but regional, with Democrats primarily in the South and Republicans in the North. This division largely held for many years, but over the course of the 20th century, the two parties underwent major shifts in their platforms. By the time we reached the 1960s and 70s, the Republican and Democratic parties were becoming more ideologically consistent, with Republicans aligning more with conservatism and Democrats with progressivism. The Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and the cultural upheavals of the 1960s and 70s solidified the differences between the parties. As the Democrats moved further left on social issues, supporting civil rights and welfare programs, Republicans increasingly aligned with traditional values, limited government, and market-oriented policies. So how did we go from these shifts to the deep, almost tribal divides we see today? One key factor is ideological polarization. When the differences between political parties become so extreme that there's little to no overlap in beliefs or policy preferences. In the past, both parties had a significant number of moderates who often worked together across party lines. For example, there were conservative Democrats in the South and liberal Republicans in the North. But over the last few decades, moderates have become nearly extinct. Now, the parties have become more ideologically pure, with Republicans moving further right and Democrats moving further left. This leaves little room for compromise. Another driver of polarization is the shift toward cultural and identity politics. It's no longer just about tax policy or government size. It's about core values, beliefs, and identities. Issues like immigration, LGBTQ+ rights, climate change, and gun control are deeply tied to personal identity and worldview. When politics becomes a matter of identity, who you are and what you believe about right and wrong, it's much harder to see the other side's perspective, let alone find common ground. It's impossible to talk about the divide between Republicans and Democrats without addressing the media. The rise of 24/7 cable news, the internet and social media has dramatically changed how we consume information and how we view the other side. Echo chambers and partisan media outlets. We live in an age of echo chambers where people consume media that reinforces their existing beliefs and rarely exposes them to opposing viewpoints. Whether it's cable networks like Fox News, MSNBC, or online platforms like Twitter and Facebook, the media we consume often has a partisan slant. These echo chambers contribute to confirmation bias, where people seek out information that confirms what they already believe. This leads to more entrenched opinions and a distorted view of the other side. Sensationalism and conflict-driven narratives. The media thrives on sensationalism and conflict. It's what drives ratings, clicks, and shares. Political debates, scandals, and controversies are framed as battles between good and evil, amplifying the sense of conflict and making it seem like compromise is impossible. Segment 4, Social Psychology, Tribalism, and Us versus Them. Why do we feel so strongly about politics, and why are we so quick to label those on the other side as enemies? It comes down to basic social psychology and our natural tendency toward tribalism. Humans have an innate tendency to categorize others as part of their in-group or out-group. When it comes to politics, Republicans and Democrats see each other as belonging to opposing groups, and that creates a sense of loyalty to one's own group and hostility toward the other. This us versus them mentality is reinforced by social cues, party leaders, and even family and friends. It's no wonder that political debates can feel like personal attacks. Another psychological factor at play is confirmation bias, our tendency to seek out information that confirms what we already believe. When we encounter information that challenges our beliefs, it creates cognitive dissonance, an uncomfortable feeling that our worldview is being threatened. This discomfort makes us more likely to dismiss opposing viewpoints and stick to our own side, making meaningful dialogue and understanding even harder to achieve. The divide between Republicans and Democrats doesn't just play out in Congress or on social media, it impacts our everyday lives. Impact on personal relationships. Polarization has taken a toll on personal relationships. It's common to hear stories about families who no longer speak to each other because of political differences, or friends who have drifted apart because of opposing views. According to some studies, political polarization is now one of the main reasons for tension in relationships, even more so than other traditional sources of conflict like religion or money. The polarization also affects how the government functions, or fails to function. As parties become more entrenched in their ideologies, bipartisan compromise becomes rare, leading to legislative gridlock, shutdowns, and a lack of meaningful progress on important issues. What can be done to bridge the divide? So, is there any hope? While the divide between Republicans and Democrats is deep, it's not insurmountable. Here are some ways we can start bridging the gap. The first step is to create spaces for open and respectful dialogue. Instead of trying to win debates or prove the other side wrong, aim to understand where they're coming from. Ask questions, listen actively, and avoid making assumptions. Challenge yourself to consume news from a variety of sources, including those that offer different perspectives. The more you expose yourself to different viewpoints, the better equipped you are to understand and engage with the complexities of political issues. At the end of the day, most Americans share common values, a desire for safety, opportunity, justice, and a better future for their families. By focusing on these shared goals rather than our differences, we can start to find common ground. The divide between Republicans and Democrats is real, and it's a challenge that won't be solved overnight. But by being open-minded, seeking understanding, and prioritizing respectful dialogue, we can start to bridge the gap. It's not about agreeing on everything, it's about recognizing our shared humanity and working together toward a better future. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, no matter where you stand politically, we all share this country. Let's work to make it better together.